Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about something that sounds simple at first, but once you understand it, it changes the way you look at history, politics, borders, culture, and even personal identity. We are going to talk about the difference between empires and nation states. More specifically, we are going to explore why the world before modern nationalism was organized very differently from the world we live in today. And then we will look at why misunderstanding that difference creates so much confusion when people talk about countries, ethnic groups, religions, cultures, and political identity. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make when they look at history is this. They imagine the past as if it was simply an older version of the present. They look at a map of the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Persian Empire, the British Empire, the Russian Empire, or the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they imagine these places as if they were just big countries. But that is not quite right. An empire was not just a large nation state. It was a completely different kind of political structure. It organized people, territory, culture, and loyalty in a way that feels strange to us today because we are used to thinking in national terms. Today, when we look at the world map, we mostly see nation states. We see countries with borders, flags, national languages, passports, and citizenship laws. We assume that every country represents a people. We assume that each political unit has a national identity behind it. France is for the French, Japan is for the Japanese, Poland is for the Poles, Greece is for the Greeks, Turkey is for the Turks, Armenia is for the Armenians, India is for Indians, Iran is for Iranians. Of course, reality is more complicated than this, but this is the basic imagination of the modern world. But empires did not work this way. An empire was usually a vast political structure that ruled over many different peoples. It did not necessarily expect everyone inside it to share one identity, one language, one culture, or one sense of national belonging. In many empires, diversity was not an accident, it was part of the system. The modern nation-state tries to create a direct relationship between the state and the individual citizen. The empire often ruled through layers. A person in an empire might be loyal to a local noble, a religious authority, a tribal leader, and then finally to the emperor, sultan, king, or imperial court. Power was not always centralized in the same way modern states try to centralize power. Authority could be negotiated, shared, delegated, or unevenly applied. This does not mean empires were gentle or tolerant in a modern democratic sense. Many empires were violent, exploitative, hierarchical, and deeply unequal. But the logic of empire was different. The empire did not always need everyone to become the same kind of person. It needed obedience, taxes, soldiers, loyalty, and order. The nation state, by contrast, often wants something deeper. It does not only want obedience, it wants identification. It wants people to see themselves as part of a single national community. It wants everyone from the worker to the student to imagine themselves as members of one national story. This is why modern states invest so heavily in public education, national language, official history, and national holidays. These things are tools for creating national identity. An empire may say, "You are many peoples under one ruler." A nation state tends to say, "You are one people under one flag." That distinction matters. For much of history, political borders did not represent nations in the modern sense. Borders represented dynastic power, conquest, and marriage alliances. The Ottoman Empire, for example, included Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, Kurds, Jews, and Slavs. It was not organized around the idea of one Turkish nation. The Austro-Hungarian Empire also contained many peoples: Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Croats, Serbs, and Italians. It was a dynastic empire holding together multiple national groups. The Russian Empire ruled over Russians, Ukrainians, Poles, Finns, and Central Asians. Its structure included Orthodox identity and autocratic monarchy, over enormous diversity. The British Empire was a maritime and colonial empire ruling territories from India to Africa. It created imperial subjects and economic systems designed to serve imperial power. The modern nation-state emerged through the rise of nationalism. Nationalism argued that legitimate government should come from the people, the nation. This was revolutionary. The nation-state is based on the idea that a people with a shared identity should have political sovereignty. People were no longer simply subjects, they were citizens. Once people began to believe that nations should rule themselves, empires became vulnerable. Nationalism became a force that could break empires apart. But empires had mixed people together for centuries. Borders were not clean. Nationalism arrived and asked a dangerous question. Which nation does this place belong to? The modern nation-state wants clarity. It wants to know who belongs and what language should dominate. But the imperial world left behind mixed and contested identities. When people today argue about history, they often use modern national categories to describe people who did not think of themselves in modern national terms. Think about people whose ethnic group exists across several countries, like the Kurds. The map of states does not always match the map of peoples because borders were often inherited from empires. For the majority, nationalism can feel unifying. But for minorities, it can feel like pressure to assimilate or prove loyalty. This is a central tension of the modern world. In a nation-state, culture is often nationalized. Food, music, and history become part of national heritage. But in empires, culture flowed across borders that didn't exist yet. What later becomes Greek, Turkish, or Arab may have developed through centuries of exchange. Modern nationalism tries to separate these blended histories into clean categories. Nation-states need national histories to create unity. But when simplified, history can turn into propaganda, making people believe their nation has always existed in its current form. The empire and the nation-state are two different ways of imagining power. One imagines rule over diversity, the other imagines unity through a people. Every border has a story. Every national identity has been shaped by memory and forgetting. Understanding the difference gives us a clearer view of history and ourselves. Thank you for watching. I hope this deep dive into empires and nation states has given you a new perspective on our world map.